Hi, I'm Janet from Buggy Barn, and I'm here to talk to you about adding circles to our craziness. And as you know, our crazy method is really easy to make bigger or smaller. As you saw from the quilt that we're making today, it's 25 blocks, and that means you need a fat quarter for every block. And that would be 5 times 5 is 25 fat quarters. However, because I'm working in a 3-color scheme, 25 is not divisible by 3, so we have to step up to 27, which then gives us, that means we have 9 fabrics in each colorway. That will give us 2 extra blocks, but you can either make a pillow or put them on your back. So you do have to have equal numbers of all 3 colorways, and as you stack, when you're stacking in 3 separate piles, it's very easy. You can't really mess up your stacking. You just want to mix up your plaids and your various prints, the scales of your prints. So I have them stacked here about the way I think that they should be. I have the same print in this stack, and so I've separated them by several pieces. I've separated my plaids and the different scales. And here the red, I've done the same thing. And the gold. And here the gold, you can see I've got these 3 lighter values of the gold, and I again have separated them in the pile. So then once you've got your stacks, I always usually try to stack my fabrics when they're still folded like this. It just makes it easier to move them around. So now that we have our color scheme figured out and our stacks lined out, then we're going to trace. You have your full-size pattern in your booklet, and you're going to just put your freezer paper right on top of here. And I do want you to use a straight edge. And use your ruler and a pencil, and you're going to just trace right on the lines. Except I need a pencil that works. Because we have 3 piles, that means you're going to need 3 tracings, 1 for each pile to cut up. And there's 9 fabrics, and I think that's an ideal amount to cut through. I never cut through less than 12 fabrics. I'm happy to go through 12 to 15. I use this big 60mm rotary cutter. And I usually tell you to start with a new blade, but I don't usually. So I have made several quilts with this blade that I'm about to use, and so you'll see how easy it is. All right, a couple more lines here. All right. That's going to come on through, and then this one also has a circle on here, so I want you to very carefully. You're going to have to freehand, and I do want you to carefully trace the circle down under here. Here, last one. All right, and then you can label them. C1, C2, C3, C1, that's C3 and C2. And then I have my other 2 tracings for the other 2 piles off over here. So then we're going to go to the iron. And I've got my stack right here, and you can either turn your stack upside down, because this is going to be the bottom. And I just want you to align, I usually align the selvage on one side. Okay, and that just ensures that when you iron your freezer paper pattern on top of your fat quarter stack, that you have, that you know you have fabric underneath your pattern. And again, this is, when you're stacking, it's always stacking right sides up. So if you have a brushed homespun, like this one is, see, you have to decide whether you want the brush side up or the flat side up. Sometimes there's a subtle color difference, so it's whatever you prefer. A lot of times we mix, sometimes we put them up and sometimes we put them down. And then that brush on the homespuns just gives your quilt a little added dimension. And since no two fat quarters are the same, even though you try hard, they just never come out the same. And it's easy to just line up your selvages and give them a little shake, smooth them out, and we're almost done. Oops. And you do want to make sure that all the folds are out, that there aren't any wrinkles in your fabric, because that will distort your pattern pieces down underneath. Now here's another brushed homespun. I'm going to put this side up. Now I've ended up with the homespun on top, and especially if the flannel or the brush side is up, I usually do not put a brushed homespun on top, just because the freezer paper sticks very easily to it. And then you're going to just take the pattern piece, and you want to give yourself some room on both sides. And down here at the selvage, you don't want any of these white, you don't want to get cut into any of those whites. And then you're just going to press it on here. This just stabilizes your pattern while you cut. So we're going to move back over here to the cutting mat. And we still want our master, because as we cut, we're going to stack on our master so we don't have to think about how the pattern goes back together. So the first thing I do is I cut around the outside of the pattern. Get rid of these. A lot of times, if I haven't used the whole fat quarter in the design, then a lot of times we'll sash with them or we'll bind with them. But in this case, I've pretty much used the whole entire fat quarter. So these edges are going to be waste. Okay, now, so I've got my edges cleared off, and now you're going to say your alphabet backwards. And so you have sections A, B, and C. So C is the highest letter in the alphabet, so that's the section that comes off first. I'm going to turn this so got a good angle on it. Okay, and then I'm going to slide this over, and now I count backwards. So I'm going to 3 is the highest, so it comes off first. Section C3. I'm going to cut it off, and now that it's free, I'm going to put it over here on the master. Okay, and then I'm going to separate 2 and 1. And again, this helps you so you don't have to think how this little star point goes on there. You just stick it down there on the top of the master. It all fits. Okay, so now we have to cut off section B. Now Now when there's more sections, when you're up in E, F, and G, so you learn your ABC song very well because I'm constantly singing it. Okay, so here's B3, so it comes off first. And then we're going to separate B2 and B1. B1. And the last one is section A, so 3 comes off first. So again, you're counting backwards when you're cutting. And then the last 2. Alright, so now I've got my black fabric pile all cut and stacked up on the master, and so now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut out my gold pile and my red pile, and then I'll be right back with you.